Financial instability isn't just a concern for individuals. It's a growing crisis for entire states. Across the U.S., rising debt, underfunded pensions, and economic downturns have left several states teetering on the edge of bankruptcy. While some states struggle due to declining industries, others face soaring deficits from years of mismanagement. Today, we'll count down the 10 U.S. states most at risk of financial collapse in 2025. And before we get started, don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on more engaging content. Let's dive in. Number 10. Hawaii. Hawaii's financial struggles have been exacerbated by its dependence on tourism, which accounts for nearly 21% of its economy, according to the Hawaii Tourism Authority. Any downturn in global travel, such as recessions or natural disasters, leaves the state vulnerable. Hawaii has a debt per capita of $6,737. The state's high cost of living and reliance on tourism, which can be volatile, contribute to its financial challenges. The cost of living in Hawaii remains among the highest in the U.S., with the average home price reaching $835 in 2025, according to Zillow. Skyrocketing housing costs and limited land availability have made affordability a major issue for residents. The state government has struggled to manage its growing debt, with annual deficits widening as public spending outpaces revenue. Efforts to increase taxation have been met with pushback, further complicating fiscal recovery. Hawaii's pension system is another source of financial strain. The employees' retirement system faces a shortfall exceeding $14 billion, placing further pressure on state resources, according to Pew Charitable Trusts. Infrastructure and public service costs continue to rise, with the state's geographical isolation making basic necessities more expensive to transport. These factors have driven businesses away, limiting economic growth. While Hawaii remains a desirable tourist destination, its fragile financial situation poses a serious threat to long-term stability. Without diversification beyond tourism, the state risks deepening its fiscal crisis. Number 9. Mississippi. Mississippi consistently ranks among the poorest states in the U.S., with a poverty rate of 18.7%, the highest in the nation, according to U.S. Census Bureau. This economic weakness has translated into severe fiscal struggles. Mississippi has the highest rate of personal bankruptcy filings in the nation, with 292 cases per 100,000 residents. The state's high poverty rate and economic challenges contribute to its fiscal instability. Despite efforts to attract new industries, Mississippi remains heavily dependent on agriculture and manufacturing, sectors that have struggled in recent years due to automation and global trade shifts. The state's tax revenues have been inconsistent, leading to significant budget shortfalls. Mississippi has had to cut funding for education and infrastructure, making it harder to attract new businesses and skilled workers. Healthcare costs have placed additional strain on Mississippi's budget. The state's failure to expand Medicaid has led to high hospital closure rates, leaving many residents without access to necessary medical care. Public pension liabilities remain a significant concern. The Mississippi Public Employees Retirement System has a funding ratio of just 61%, leaving the state struggling to meet long-term obligations, according to National Association of State Retirement Administrators. Despite attempts at economic revitalization, job growth has been slow. The state's median household income remains one of the lowest in the country, at just $52,000 per year. Unless drastic policy changes are made, Mississippi will continue to face financial hardship, struggling to balance economic growth with rising debt. Number 8. Kentucky. Kentucky's fiscal challenges largely stem from its deep pension crisis, with a $37 billion funding gap in its retirement system, according to Moody's Analytics. Decades of mismanagement have left the state unable to meet long-term obligations. Kentucky's pension system is among the worst funded in the nation, with less than 60 cents in assets for every dollar in liabilities. This underfunding contributes to the state's financial instability. Education and healthcare make up a large portion of Kentucky's budget, yet funding has consistently fallen short. Many schools face closures or cutbacks due to lack of resources. The state's economy relies heavily on coal, an industry that has been in decline for years, with coal production dropping by 45% since 2010. According to U.S. Energy Information Administration, thousands of jobs have been lost. Kentucky's economic growth has lagged behind the national average. and its median household income of $56,000 remains below the U.S. median of $74,000. This has resulted in lower tax revenue and greater reliance on federal assistance. The opioid crisis has further strained Kentucky's budget, with addiction treatment and law enforcement costs skyrocketing. The state ranks among the worst for drug-related deaths, increasing healthcare and social service expenditures. Despite some efforts to reform tax policies and attract new businesses, Kentucky's fiscal future remains uncertain. Unless it resolves its pension crisis, the state will continue to teeter on financial instability. Number 7. New York. New York may be an economic powerhouse, but its massive public spending has left it with a staggering $425 billion in debt, according to New York State Comptroller. This makes it one of the most indebted states in the country. New York has a debt per capita of more than $7,000. The state's high cost of living and extensive social programs contribute to its financial challenges. The high cost of living in New York City has contributed to an exodus of residents, with over 380,000 people leaving the state between 2020 and 2024. This migration has resulted in declining tax revenue, further straining state finances. New York's expansive social programs, while essential for many, account for nearly 40% of the state's budget. Medicaid costs alone reached $90 billion in 2024, making it one of the most expensive healthcare systems in the country. Infrastructure costs remain a major concern, with projects like the Metropolitan Transportation Authority (MTA) operating at a $2.5 billion deficit annually. Public transportation delays and maintenance issues have frustrated commuters. The state's pension obligations are growing rapidly, with unfunded liabilities exceeding $150 billion, according to Pew Research. Without significant reforms, the strain on future budgets will continue to increase. Despite Wall Street's financial influence, New York faces growing economic inequality. Rising rents, stagnant wages, and job losses in traditional industries have left many struggling to keep up with expenses. With mounting debt and budget shortfalls, New York must find ways to balance its ambitious social programs with responsible fiscal management to avoid further financial distress. Number 6. Alaska. Alaska's economy has long depended on its oil industry, but falling oil prices and reduced production have severely impacted state revenues. In 2025, crude oil prices remain unpredictable, further threatening the state's financial health. Despite its abundant natural resources, Alaska faces financial difficulties, with a debt per capita of $8,079. The state's reliance on oil revenues, which have been volatile, contributes to its fiscal instability. The Alaska Permanent Fund, which distributes annual dividend payments to residents, has also been shrinking due to lower oil revenues. The state government has debated cutting these payments to balance the budget, a move that has sparked controversy. Budget deficits have led to reductions in state services, including education and healthcare. The University of Alaska system has faced funding cuts, leading to campus closures and program reductions. Alaska's harsh winters and remote geography increase the cost of living, with basic necessities such as groceries and fuel costing significantly more than in the lower 48 states. These factors contribute to economic instability for residents. With a small population of around 730,000, Alaska has fewer taxpayers to support its spending. The state has considered implementing a statewide sales tax to generate additional revenue, but opposition remains strong. Federal funding has historically helped bridge budget gaps, but with federal resources stretched thin, Alaska can no longer rely on external support to maintain financial stability. Unless Alaska diversifies its economy beyond oil, it will continue to struggle with revenue shortfalls and growing debt, making it one of the most financially vulnerable states in the country. Number 5. Rhode Island. As the smallest state in the U.S., Rhode Island has fewer revenue-generating industries, which limits its ability to balance its budget. With a population of just over 1 million, tax revenue often falls short of covering state expenses. Rhode Island's debt per capita stands at more than $8,000, indicating significant financial obligations relative to its population size. The state's fiscal challenges are compounded by its small size and limited economic base. The state's pension system remains severely underfunded, with liabilities exceeding $6 billion. According to Pew Research, Attempts at pension reform have faced political resistance, delaying necessary changes. High property taxes have driven some residents out of the state, reducing the tax base even further. The average property tax bill in Rhode Island is now over $4,500 annually, according to Tax Foundation. The state's infrastructure is aging, with deteriorating roads and bridges requiring urgent investment. However, budget constraints have stalled critical repair projects, adding to Rhode Island's financial woes. Healthcare costs continue to rise, and with a large portion of the population relying on Medicaid, the state's healthcare budget is stretched thin. Federal funding cuts have further exacerbated this problem. Despite efforts to attract new businesses, job growth remains sluggish. Many young professionals leave Rhode Island for better opportunities in neighboring Massachusetts and Connecticut, leading to a shrinking workforce. Unless Rhode Island finds new sources of revenue and enacts meaningful fiscal reforms, its financial troubles will only deepen, leaving the state in a precarious position. Number 4. Connecticut. Connecticut has one of the worst pension funding ratios in the U.S., with only 40% of its pension obligations covered. This shortfall has resulted in higher taxes and spending cuts to compensate for the growing deficit. Connecticut has a debt per capita of $10,679, placing it among the states with the highest per capita debt. The state's financial challenges are linked to unresolved issues such as unfunded pensions and high healthcare costs. Property taxes in Connecticut are among the highest in the nation, with the average homeowner paying over $6,500 annually. This has contributed to an exodus of residents, further shrinking the tax base. The state's economy has struggled to recover from past recessions. Job growth has been slow, and major employers such as General Electric and Eaton have relocated their headquarters to other states, reducing corporate tax revenue. Healthcare costs in Connecticut continue to rise, with Medicaid expenditures consuming a growing share of the state budget. State officials have warned that without additional federal assistance, healthcare funding will be unsustainable. Transportation infrastructure is another concern. Aging highways and bridges require urgent repairs, but funding shortfalls have delayed key projects, leading to worsening traffic congestion and economic inefficiencies. The state has attempted to balance its budget through spending cuts and tax increases, but these measures have been met with public backlash. Many businesses argue that high taxes make Connecticut an unattractive place to operate. Unless Connecticut enacts significant fiscal reforms, it risks further credit downgrades and an even deeper financial crisis in the coming years. Number 3. Massachusetts. Massachusetts' economy is driven by its prestigious universities and healthcare institutions, but the high costs associated with these sectors have created major financial challenges. Public funding for education and healthcare continues to rise, putting pressure on the state budget. With a debt per capita of $11,047, Massachusetts leads the nation in per capita debt. The state's high costs of education and healthcare, along with increasing pension responsibilities, contribute to its financial strain. Boston's cost of living is among the highest in the country, with median home prices exceeding $750,000, according to Zillow. Rising rents and property taxes have made housing affordability a growing concern. The state's public pension system is severely underfunded, with liabilities exceeding $95 billion. Efforts to reform pension contributions have faced resistance from labor unions and state employees. Massachusetts has one of the highest healthcare costs in the nation, with Medicaid expenses accounting for nearly 40% of the state's budget. This has forced the government to cut spending in other critical areas. Infrastructure projects have been delayed due to budget constraints, with the MBT, a Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority, operating under a $2 billion deficit. Public transportation issues have further complicated economic growth. Massachusetts has tried to offset financial struggles by increasing taxes on high-income earners, but this has led to concerns about driving wealthy individuals and businesses out of the state. Without major fiscal adjustments, Massachusetts risks deeper budget deficits and long-term economic instability. Number 2. New Jersey. New Jersey has one of the highest tax burdens in the country, with property taxes averaging $9,300 per homeowner, according to Tax Foundation. These high taxes have driven thousands of residents to relocate to lower tax states. New Jersey faces significant financial challenges, with a debt per capita of $7,000. The state's high property taxes and structural budget deficits exacerbate its fiscal instability. The state's public pension system remains a significant concern, with over $130 billion in unfunded liabilities. Efforts to reform the system have been met with political resistance, delaying necessary changes. New Jersey's infrastructure is among the worst rated in the U.S. Decaying roads, aging bridges, and underfunded public transportation systems have contributed to economic inefficiencies and commuter frustrations. Budget shortfalls have led to frequent state government shutdowns, as lawmakers struggle to balance competing fiscal priorities. The state's credit rating has been downgraded multiple times due to its ongoing financial instability. Despite efforts to attract businesses, New Jersey's corporate tax rates remain among the highest in the country, discouraging new investment. Large employers like Merck and Honeywell have downsized operations or moved headquarters elsewhere. The COVID-19 pandemic exacerbated financial challenges, with increased healthcare costs and lost revenue from business closures. State officials warn that without major reforms, deficits will continue to grow. New Jersey's financial future remains uncertain, with rising debt and structural deficits posing a significant risk to long-term economic stability. Number 1. Illinois. Illinois stands at the top of the list as the most financially unstable state in the U.S. Decades of budget mismanagement, rising debt, and a struggling economy have placed the state on the brink of financial disaster. Illinois has been consistently highlighted for its severe financial issues, including a substantial pension funding gap. Reports indicate that the state's pension funds are underfunded by approximately $212 billion, contributing to its precarious fiscal position. The state's pension crisis is among the worst in the nation, with unfunded liabilities ballooning to $212 billion, according to Pew Charitable Trusts. Illinois has continuously failed to contribute the necessary funds to cover future pension obligations, forcing lawmakers into a financial deadlock. Illinois has the second highest property taxes in the country, averaging $5,800 per household annually, according to Tax Foundation. Despite these high taxes, the state remains unable to balance its budget, leading to frequent credit downgrades and rising borrowing costs. Public services have suffered as a result of budget shortfalls. Schools in underfunded districts are struggling, and state infrastructure projects have faced repeated delays due to funding gaps. Meanwhile, healthcare costs continue to rise, consuming a growing share of Illinois' budget. The state's economy has also struggled to keep pace with national growth. Businesses have been leaving Illinois due to high taxes and regulatory burdens, with major corporations like Boeing and Caterpillar relocating their headquarters to lower tax states. This exodus has reduced corporate tax revenue and worsened financial woes. Despite attempts at pension reform and tax restructuring, Illinois' budget deficit continues to grow. With a debt per capita among the highest in the U.S. and no clear plan to address its pension crisis, the state is inching closer to a potential financial collapse. Unless drastic fiscal reforms are implemented, Illinois could face an unprecedented economic crisis, making it the state most at risk of bankruptcy in 2025. From Illinois' staggering pension debt to Hawaii's reliance on volatile tourism revenue, these states are facing serious financial trouble. Budget deficits, tax burdens, and economic stagnation have left them struggling to balance the books, making bankruptcy a looming threat. Which state's financial situation surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and explore Globe Discoveries for more insights into the world's biggest economic challenges. Thank you for watching.